Minnesota, you had one job and 5 minutes in which to do it. Hello, welcome back to another Bolts Analysis 2020. I'm your host Chris as we look at the fortunes of the Tampa Bay Lightning and how they're doing compared to the rest of the NHL. That's the National Hockey League to the newbies out there. And last night we needed a favour from the Minnesota Wild and we nearly got one, but in the end it was Minnesota Wild 4, Florida Panthers 5 in Minnesota. And just one of those ones where Minnesota did what I thought they shouldn't do and tried to play sort of almost fast and loose, you score, we score, and sort of see who has the most goals at the end. To be fair, I thought Minnesota had quite a good game in patches. They outshot the Panthers. They got, they took some of their chances, but there were just points, I think, especially for the second Florida goal, where it was just one of those situations where Barkov was in front of the net, and you just sort of think, Barkov, that well-known Florida Panther player who is very deadly in front of goal, you've left him open. This is how you want to play it, Minnesota. And they show good spirit, and at one point they were 4-3 up with 5 minutes to go, but just some sloppy play. Florida seemed to get Minnesota quite a lot on the stretch, just sort of, picking them apart and just waiting for the sort of a gap to open up and then exploiting that. They did that well, Florida, to be fair. And the fourth goal wasn't great from Stalock's point of view. He didn't close his pads quick enough, and just the fifth goal for Florida with 5 seconds, I think 4.5 seconds to go. It's just a really gut-wrenching way to lose. And that means that the Florida Panthers are now only 3 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is a little bit close for comfort, and they had the chance to get even closer. The good thing, I think, generally from that game that showed, is that Florida are still not quite set up in some aspects of their defense. I wasn't particularly impressed with what I saw of Sergei Bobrovsky. Some of the goals from Minnesota, I just felt like he was sort of almost flapping at. He wasn't quite set. Doesn't quite seem to be sort of, the sort of superstar that people were necessarily expecting him to be. However, it wasn't purely on him. Some of the goals from Florida as well, especially a short-handed goal, is always a bad one to give up. So I think it's just signs that the Florida is still kind of a work in progress. Definitely improving, but need to sort of just tweak a few things and not be quite as sloppy, because I think if they'd gone up against a stronger team than Minnesota, they wouldn't have won. They would have lost quite badly. Similar to how they played against Arizona, I guess, in a lot of ways, which again they did lose because they were sloppy. So there's 5 games on tonight, and all of them are some more important than others, but all, I would say, at least 2 or 3 are quite important to Tampa. So Boston are playing tonight, and they're playing at the Vegas Golden Knights. Which is a pretty crucial game for both. Boston kind of need to win to sort of get back into the groove after the sort of disappointing defeat to Pittsburgh. Vegas know that if they win, they can go from being 4th in the Pacific to 1st in the Pacific, and that's a much better way to enter the All-Star break. But Vegas also know that if they lose that, then they risk conceding more ground to the likes of Winnipeg and Chicago, who are also both playing tonight. And now we, the Tampa Bay Lightning, are hoping for a favour from Chicago because they're hosting Florida. I think this time we might get one because Chicago are looking pretty hot. They've won their last 5. They're scoring for fun. They scored 11 goals in the last 2 games alone. They're one of those teams that you sort of think, yes, but are they defensively good enough to win a Stanley Cup? Probably not, no. But I feel like they are one of those teams that if they wanted to play a sort of you score, we score against Florida, they could come out on top. Because they've got the offensive firepower up front with the likes of Kane, Taves, the new rookie whose name escapes me, but you know who I'm talking about. He's good. He's come up. I want to say his name's like Dibali or something like that, or Jubilee. But there was a goal he scored against the Toronto Maple Leafs where he just literally baseball bats it out of the air, and that takes skill. So I think Chicago could get a result there. It's going to be an interesting game anyway, just because it's Joe Quenneville going back to his old club in Chicago, the team that he managed to get 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years. So it's going to be a good occasion, I think, regardless of what happens in that one. fingers crossed for a Chicago win, but it's one that could go either way. I wouldn't bet it against Florida at the moment. They're almost as hot as Chicago, if not hotter. So that should be good. So that's two of the games. There's also Carolina Hurricanes hosting the Winnipeg Jets, which sort of has an impact on both wildcard races because Carolina are in the wildcard spots and kind of want to stay there, but also know they can sort of close the gap on the New York Islanders if they want to. Winnipeg need to get themselves going because they are in a slump. They've let in 12 goals in the last two games, 7 against us and 5 against Chicago, so that's not looking good. They need to sort of rediscover the winning touch quick. Because they're still in with a chance to make the wildcard spot, but if they get into a skid, then it's going to start pulling away from them in a very bad way. I feel like the Canes should win that, but then again, this is the fixture that I think last year the Winnipeg actually came into town and won 8-1 against Carolina, so who knows, something as freakish as that could happen again. Then we have two big Metropolitan Division rivalry clashes, so we've got Philadelphia Flyers hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh looking pretty comfortable in second. Philadelphia wanting to get back into the wildcard spots and playing some good hockey at the moment. Capable of sort of squeaky results here and there, but overall, Philly definitely stronger than last year, looking to improve and getting good results against the likes of teams like St. Louis Blues. A little bit unlucky against us. So, and I think Philadelphia actually have quite a good record against Pittsburgh in recent seasons. So, I mean, they did lose to Pittsburgh in the playoffs a couple of seasons ago, but I think during the regular season, they've quite often, more often than not, they've got the Penguins' number. So it could be a win for Philly, but don't rule Pittsburgh out. They've got tremendous spirit in that team. And lastly, we have New York against New York, with the Rangers hosting the Islanders. And oh boy, did the Islanders need to win this one, because they are in a funk. And they played better against Carolina on Sunday, but they still lost. And they've lost twice to the Rangers out of the first two meetings. They don't want to lose the third, because that will set up a season sweep for the fourth game. And I think for the Islanders, if they lose this, they're almost certainly giving up third spot because someone is going to overtake them, whether it's Columbus, possibly Carolina. Someone's going to nip in and steal third, and if you're an Islanders fan, that's probably your nightmare scenario at the moment. But this is why you need to just hunker down, find a way to beat the Rangers, and yeah, go into the All-Star break knowing at least that you're third and you can't be touched for a bit. So that's all the games. We're still second, so that's good. And hopefully, when I sort of chat to you next, we're still 3 points ahead of the team in third. But it's all down to Chicago now. And this has been another Bolts Analysis. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. And remember, I want to hear Chelsea Dagger. Maybe 5 times? 6 to be safe? 6 to be safe.